What happens when you put a chicken, a landmine and a nuclear explosion into a blender? You get a blue peacock! You're right not to laugh, because A, that isn't a very good joke, and B, that isn't even a joke. Blue Peacock was the code name of an utterly insane British project to develop actual nuclear landmines, which, wait for it, used chickens as part of their inner workings. Not roast chickens, not KFC, but real, living, mother-clucking poultry, nature's most whimsical bird.
In the years following World War II, Europe was a continent fractured along ideological and military lines. To the west, NATO, led by the United States and its allies. To the east, the Warsaw Pact, dominated by the Soviet Union. Germany, battered, divided and occupied, straddled the crack sea of the Cold War. The fear was that if the Soviets decided to roll their tanks west and invade the rest of Europe, conventional forces alone might not be enough to stop them. NATO's response was to prepare for escalation, and the day the Reds poked their juicy bulbs through the Iron Curtain. Thanks for putting that in for me to say. Britain, a nuclear power in its own right since 1952, maintained forces in West Germany, with the strategic aim of holding the front line if war came. As the Cold War escalated, all across the alliance, governments began experimenting with new ways to defend Western Europe, focusing on tactical nuclear weapons that could be deployed quickly in the midst of battle.
Designed by the United States, the Davy Crockett rifle was one of the smallest nuclear weapons ever built, operated by a small crew and compact enough to be mounted on a jeep. It could fling a nuclear projectile up to 2.5 miles. It wasn't a battlefield free-for-all. They weren't running around shooting nukes from the hip like in Call of Duty or Crash Bandicoot or whatever. The weapons were to be fired from predetermined locations set to counter specific Soviet invasion routes. One such target was the Fulda Gap, a lowland corridor considered a likely invasion path into West Germany. However, there were concerns about crew safety. Some believed the weapon would kill its own operators through radiation exposure. The army disagreed, insisting such fears were a Crockett shit, that if used correctly the crew could survive by hiding behind a tree or running away probably. The Davy Crockett was actually built, issued and even deployed in the field, though never used in combat.
Meanwhile, Britain had ideas of its own, looking to one-up the Americans with weapons that were bolder, madder and more original. And there was one idea that was way madder and more bizarre than all the others. A top-secret plan to bury 10-kiloton nuclear landmines beneath the German countryside. If the Soviets invaded, British forces would retreat, and the bombs would be detonated remotely, leaving a huge crater between 375 and 640 feet in diameter, contaminating the region and halting any advance. The goal was basically stop the Soviet advance by scattering fallout all over the countryside. Originally codenamed Brown Bunny, then later Blue Bunny, the project was eventually dubbed Blue Peacock to align with Britain's series of blue codenames like Blue Danube, Blue Slug, Blue Water and Electric Blue. At its core, the mine was a repurposed Blue Danube warhead. But Blue Danube had its own problems. It was too heavy, too unwieldy and barely more than a bunch of theoretical ideas stuffed into a metal casing. Like a sort of ultimate Kinder Egg of death.
Design challenges were significant. The atomic mine had to be waterproof, tamper-proof and safe to bury for days or even weeks. Solutions included a remote detonation cable and even a clockwork timer, just in case the operator didn't make it out. Fail-safes were extensive. The mine would explode if moved, tampered with, pierced, flooded, kicked, shot, hit with a hammer or dry humped by a confused Russian. But mobility was another flaw. At 7.5 tons, it was too impractical and unstable for off-road transport in real-world conditions. Even then, if they managed to overcome all of that, there was the small matter of where these mines were going to be deployed. German winters are cold enough to freeze the balls off a bear, and the concern was that the firing mechanism would literally freeze up and not work when needed.
Several solutions were proposed, including wrapping the internal workings in a sort of duvet until they hit upon an even more genius notion. Chickens. Real live chickens, nature's most versatile boys and girls. In short, military engineers suggested placing the birds inside the bomb casing. Left with enough food and water for about 8 days, their body heat would keep the internal components warm. It was to be a front line of subterranean poultry unwittingly sacrificing their lives in the name of freedom.
The idea was technically feasible, and though 2 prototypes were built, the project never reached deployment, and it was officially cancelled in 1958 because it simply didn't work well enough. But for a few years, Britain really did explore using poultry to help hold the line in Europe. And when the chicken heating concept was later revealed on April the 1st, 2004 no less, the public was convinced it had to be a joke. However, when confronted, the National Archives responded bluntly: the civil service does not do jokes. What do you think? Is there a chance it might actually be a hoax? Leave a comment, let us know what you think. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of what we do, check out the rest of the channel where we go in depth exploring the world's weirder side, visit some fascinating places and give you our take. And please help support our work if you can. Even though we're poor, we like to make big ambitious documentaries which don't come cheap. Simply subscribing helps us massively, but you can also become a channel member or sign up to our Patreon, which gives you access to a whole bunch of exclusive stuff and makes you part of a community of very excellent people. Thanks for watching.